For about a year now, we have seen new rule sets coming out from Kobold Press for their upcoming Tales of the Valiant role-playing game. They ran a Kickstarter last year for the Player's Guide and for the Monster Vault for Tales of the Valiant. They have a new GM guide that's coming out. I've had, in full disclosure, I have worked with Kobold Press on both their monster book and on the GM guide, so I'm not exactly unbiased when it comes to my enjoyment of things Kobold Press. But I have loved Kobold Press longer than I have been doing some freelance work for Kobold Press. I really like the work that they do. I enjoy the books that they put out. I have run many of their adventures. I've run many of their books. And I'm very excited to see Tales of the Valiant come out. I'm excited to see what it's got. But we've been seeing some of their design coming out both in playtest documents that have been coming out for Tales of the Valiant and with their Black Flag system reference document. This system reference document, 138-page system reference document, is available for free online and is licensed under the Orc license, the new Orc license that came out from the OGL catastrophe of last year. A bunch of different publishers together, mostly led by Paizo, came up with a new license that's independent of any publisher. So even though Paizo, I think, financed it through a law firm known as Azora Law, who has worked with other tabletop role-playing game companies, they put together the Orc license, and Black Flag SRD is available under the Orc license. That really only matters to publishers, though. It doesn't really matter to us here who are GMs that are making things. But one of the really neat bits of mechanics that came out with the Black Flag playtest and with the Tales of the Valiant playtest is their alternative system for inspiration. So if you're familiar with 5th edition D&D and 5e, 2014 5e, you know about inspiration. What's really interesting is what I would recommend you do, because it's kind of a fun exercise, if you're thinking about inspiration, go read what the 2014 Player's Handbook has to say about inspiration, and then go read what the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide has to say about inspiration. They are different. It's very interesting that in the Player's Handbook, it talks about you getting inspiration by using your character traits, your flaws, your bonds, your ideals, and that sort of thing. And the Dungeon Master's Guide says you can actually use it for all different kinds of things, including not using it at all. Those rules are kind of cross purposes, which I think is one of the reasons why there's so much question about exactly how inspiration is supposed to be doing what it's doing. So some people have been trying some other things. And one of the neat ones is what Tales of the Valiant and what Black Flag has been doing, which is a system called Luck. Page 28 of the Black Flag system resource document. The whole rule set for Luck fits into a very small amount of space in this system reference document. It is a direct replacement for inspiration, so you are not intended to use inspiration and Luck together. The reason why I'm talking about it today is I've now replaced inspiration with Luck for almost since it came out. I was like, it's so easy to drop out inspiration and drop in Luck. And this gets to that whole value of the modularity of 5e, that I was able to replace inspiration with Luck, and I'm not looking back. It's so much easier to deal with. First of all, it's a system that the player gets to use on their side completely. I don't have to manage it at all as a GM, which is great because it's something else off my plate so that I can focus on the things that I need to focus on when I'm running a game. Inspiration was not that way. I had to deal with inspiration. Now, my way of dealing with inspiration was everybody at the start of every session began with inspiration, and they got it once per session. So you always had that reroll available to you once per session. Now, the 2024 version of D&D looks like they're messing around with inspiration. First, it was you got it if you rolled a 20. Then it was you got it if you rolled it on a 1. I don't know where they're going to end up on it. But frankly, I'm really happy with how the Luck system works. And I was still happy with the idea that you got it at the beginning of the game and you could get it again. So the way the Luck system works is that, again, it completely replaces inspiration. And instead of inspiration, you can actually have multiple luck points. We'll get into that. But the way it says, I'm going to read it because I think it's valuable to read this, and it's also very short. Every PC has a special resource called Luck that can be used to influence the results of any of your checks, ability checks, attack rolls, or saves. Gaining luck points. When you create a character, you start with 0 luck points. You gain luck points in the following ways. Once per turn, when you fail an attack roll or save, gain 1 luck point. The GM can award 1 luck point as a reward for clever idea, excellent role-playing, or pursuing an interesting rather than optimal choice. I really like that because that's one of the ways I was using inspiration. When players would put their characters into heroic, dangerous situations that weren't like tactically optimal, I would often reward inspiration for that. I would also make a deal with them by saying, if you're willing to do this thing, I will give you a point of inspiration for doing it because it's cool. You want to drive people towards cool. Luck points and inspiration are a great way to drive people towards doing what's cool instead of like hanging out in a doorway, sneaking around and fighting. You're not going to get luck, and you're not going to get luck or inspiration in my game if you're hiding around a doorway like I do when I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3. So you award luck, so GMs can still award luck points for anything they want to do. The GM can award luck to a party for surviving difficult encounters or achieving their story goals. So you can give it out as any other kind of goal. You all gain a luck point. You guys did something so cool, you all gain a luck point. And you can really good inspirational, good improvisational tool to reward players right on the spot as luck points. And because you can carry more than one, you can reward it more often than you would reward inspiration, where people would not get it if they did it the other way. So that's really cool. But most of the time, the way they're going to get luck is by failing a check. And that is really cool because it's a benefit to them for not having a good time. Right? That when players, because if you have like 5-6 players around a table and they don't always get a lot of actions, and then when they take an action, they fail it, it really sucks to not have anything. But if they fail it and they get this little momentum thing, this thing, yeah, you failed, but you get a point of luck, that really helps. It's been really, really beneficial. And I have seen it change the attitude of players. Even though it's a small thing, I've seen it change the attitude of players when they know that they failed to check, but they get a luck point because they know that's 1 point benefit that they're going to have in the future. Losing luck points. You can have a maximum of 5 luck points at a time. If a PC has 5 luck points and would gain a 6th point, you must immediately roll a d4 and reset your luck points to the die result. So you cannot hoard these. You should not hoard these. You want to use them. Now, there's a little tricky bit here because I've seen players who are rolling on a roll realize they have 5 and say, well, I'm going to burn 3 of them and get advantage even though I succeeded, just so I don't lose points. Or I'm going to expend a couple of points just to stay at like 3 or 4. So it's a little gamey. You can still game this a little bit by burning extra points off to keep yourself high, even though you don't need them. It's also a potential possibility for the player to forget that they had luck and they aren't keeping track of it until they get that 6 point and they're like, oh, this sucks. I should have been paying more attention. I lost it. But still, you roll a d4 and you get what you get. If you've already forgot you had them, then you're where you are. Spending luck points. You spend luck points to add to any d20 roll you make. For example, if you have 4 luck points and roll a 13 on the die, you can expend 2 luck points to make your result a 15, leaving you with 2 luck points for later. Alternatively, immediately after you make a check, attack, ability, or save, you can spend 3 luck points to re-roll a d20. In either case, you spend luck after you roll, but before the DM declares whether the roll succeeds or fails. Luck can't offset the effects of a natural 1 or create a natural 20. So there's a couple tricky bits in here too. One of them is, does that stack with advantage? So if you have advantage on a check, can you roll? And then do you roll both dice, or do you pick one of the dice to re-roll instead? When I had first thought of this, I thought that it replaced advantage, similar to the way inspiration does. That you cannot do this and have advantage on a check. If you already have advantage, you can't use. You could add points to it the same way, but you can't re-roll an advantage. And that's probably a way that I would sort of house rule this, is that the re-roll doesn't stack with advantage, because you get into this weird state of like, well, do you get to roll advantage again? Or do you pick one of the dice that you're going to re-roll? How does that affect? Same with disadvantage. Like, you could use 3 points to offset disadvantage. You would not get to use this to offset a roll of disadvantage by re-rolling one of the lower dice. So that's one little tricky bit. The other tricky bit to it is it generally means that the players are going to know what the result is going to be. In other words, you don't want to be a dick to somebody and say, oh, they rolled a 13, and they say, oh, I'm going to add 2 luck points to that. And you're like, are you going to add 2? And they're like, yeah. You're like, you still miss. And now they burned points without knowing that they were going to succeed. I guess you could do that, but to me that feels like you're already making them fail twice. They failed once when they rolled and missed, and then they fail again by adding points and then missing again. So when I've been playing this out, I've been basically telling them what the DC is, even if it's the armor class of a monster. So if they say, hey, I rolled a 13, is that going to hit? And I'll say, are you going to add any luck to that? And they're like, how much should I add? I'll say, you need to add 2. And then they add 2 and then they hit. So maybe that's making this a little bit more powerful than the expectation is. But I think the alternative is that the value of having this as a way to make people happier with the game goes down if you essentially make them fail twice. I know it says that you spend luck after you roll, but before the DM declares whether a roll succeeds or fails, means that you shouldn't be telling them the DC. I feel like if you're going to use something like it really helps to tell them what the DC is so they know how many points to spend. They're not wasting points. It's not this sort of gambling sort of thing. And that has worked well in the games that I've run. So I've actually been using the luck system now in multiple 5e games. 3 different 5e games that I'm running and have run use the luck system. And my players love it across the board. We're all very happy with it. So it's a really neat system. I would take a look at, read it here. You can find it in the Black Flag role-playing game document. You can also find it in the Tales of the Valiant playtests that have been out. I will link to it down in the show notes so you can see it there as well. But it's such a simple idea and a simple system that it's a really neat way to drop it into the game. It gives players another little thing that they can sort of deal with on their side that you really don't have to do anything with on the GM side, which is why I like it so much. There's a couple little tricky bits to manage, but so far I've not had any trouble managing those, and I found it to work better than the inspiration mechanic that has been in the core of 5e. So I really liked it and want to talk about it. Again, really good example of another publisher who's putting out a modular piece of stuff that is compatible with 5e that any of the 5e games can drop into their system and replace another piece, showing the modularity of the system and showing the wealth of information that exists for 5e overall in this entire hobby. That means we don't have to depend on any one company in order for us to be happy with this game. So please, check out the luck system from Tales of the Valiant. Really cool. If you enjoyed this show and you want to get more stuff like this from me, the best way to do so is to sign up for the free Sly Flourish newsletter. It's absolutely free to sign up. All you need is your email address, and you get a weekly RPG-related email sent directly to your inbox that includes links to all of the other work that I do every week. You can also sign up for the Sly Flourish Patreon. It's a very low price. You get to join in on the Patreon Q&A, a dedicated Discord server, the City of Arches sourcebook, which you've seen, and a whole lot of other stuff, a lot of different tools, all kinds of tips to help you run all of your RPGs. And you can pick up any of my books, including The Lazy DM's Companion, Forge of Foes, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, and all of my various fantastic books on the Sly Flourish bookstore. All of the links for those are in the show notes. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.